this has been going on. And for those that don't know me, my name is John Edwards. I happen to be the president of Warpstock Corporation. A look at the history. This is where various Warpstocks have been held over the years. Starting in 1997. One is where we are right now. So that makes us number 20. And the only thing is, I will say that any of the Canadian sites that we've held it have all been in Ontario. We haven't gone anywhere else in Canada. Although at one time we did have a submission from Edmonton, Alberta. And I forget what the problem was that year. I think it was dollars and cents, if I remember rightly. Okay, just a quick introduction to the current board of directors. As I mentioned, I'm the president. Vice president is Andy Willis, and I saw him at breakfast, and he's in the back corner. Neil Waldauer is secretary. Louis Rosenthal is running around like mad, and he's the treasurer. So he's the one that we have to keep on the good side of because he controls the money. And we currently have two directors at large. One is Stuart Updike, and I haven't seen Stuart yet this year. And the other one is Martin Eiterbide, who is here in front and is the one who is going to be streaming the proceedings. And normally we would have a seventh director, but the position is currently vacant. The schedule. Did everyone get a printed schedule?
Louis is printing them, I think.
Louis is getting them?
Yeah.
Okay. So there will be a schedule in your hand. It should give you the topic, the name of the presenter, and the start time. And please try and be in place at the start time because we do hanging on for those. Now, are there any last-minute changes, Neil?
There are not yet last-minute changes, but I think the next session is intended to generate some.
Okay. I noticed there are still a couple of TBAs.
Yeah, and people have notified me that they intend to fill them in. So.
Okay. So when you get your list, remember it's always subject to change, depending on what happens. For something unforeseen could happen, like we couldn't get a Skype connection, and we'd have to shuffle things around, or somebody came up with something new and brilliant that we hadn't thought of that we could fill in. So yeah. We do have some spaces. I wanted to make this announcement because it's extremely important. I always remember this little saying, spring ahead, fall back, because we are approaching a time which switches from daylight saving time unto standard time. And the theory is, I say the theory because most of us don't stay up to do it, but that when it becomes 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning, you change your clocks to set them at 1 o'clock in the morning. Most people don't do it then, they'll do it the night before.
Or after they show up early at church.
And the thing I always remember about it, referring back to this bit, is in spring that means you lose an hour of sleep. In the fall, you get that hour back, although your body still doesn't know what to do with it. Orlando is in the Eastern time zone, so it will welcome back Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. So keep that in mind, that although we said we're starting at 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, if you didn't change your clock, move your clock back, you could have a problem. Your problem might be sitting alone for a while. So please bear that in mind, that we just happened to hit the right weekend for that changeover. Meals. There's a hot breakfast included with your reservation package from the hotel. They call it their hot Be Our Guest breakfast. And you have partaken of that, most of you, this morning. If you haven't, it's just down the hall from where we are. Lunch on Friday. That's today. It will be back in that breakfast room, and it'll be a catered lunch, and the catering is being done courtesy of Warpstock Corporation. We figured that because of the scarcity of nearby eateries, that it would be a lot easier to have a lunch brought in. And same thing applies tomorrow. It'll also be a catered lunch, and to the best of my knowledge, it'll be a different caterer providing lunch tomorrow. All the evening meals, you're on your own. If you check the hotel's website under dining suggestions, it takes you a while to find it. You'll find links to nearby restaurants. At least they call them nearby.
They also have a printout at the front counter.
This is the list that they provided. And you can see the closest one is 3/10 of a mile away. I cut the list off at anything over a mile. So those are the ones that they suggest. There are some others on the list, and I believe there's some fast food places as well. There's also I can't call it fine dining, but there is some dining things available through the front desk. Also in your hotel room, you will have found a card from what is it, Inn something, for room service, which is an outside company that will bring stuff in. There's a menu there. I believe the minimum order for delivery is $15, and I start looking through it, and they're talking the usual sales tax and gratuities and delivery charges and packaging charge. So that is another availability for eating if you don't want to leave the hotel. This is going ahead of myself. I've just jumped to the end of things. The checkout, hotel checkout time is 12 noon. If you're leaving, let's say Sunday afternoon, you can bring your luggage in here and just set it. There's some space up here at the front that you can leave it in here, unless they have a check room for it at the front desk. And then through the front desk, you'll arrange for the shuttle to the airport, with the exception of Andy, who didn't come into the airport that the shuttle services.
The shuttle will also take you to any of the restaurants on their list that has an asterisk. So you gather a group together and arrange with them, they can take you to one of the restaurants.
Okay, that's good to know. So if you're heading out for supper or for your evening meal, you can arrange for some transport that way, because as I say, some of those restaurants are a fair distance. And if your legs are as wonky as mine, you don't want to do those distances. Just a few final thoughts. As I say, as a courtesy to our presenters and fellow attendees, please try to be in place at the start of each session. And please refrain from carrying on private discussions during presentations. It's, how can I put it?
Rude.
Very difficult to hear, especially at the back of the room. And as somebody just pointed out, it's rather rude. If you do want to get some information, there is time on both Friday and Saturday evening for socializing at a help desk in here from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. There may also be some extra time during some session times. Also with lunches, you can always socialize over lunch. And if you have to talk to someone during a presentation, please move into the hotel lobby to avoid interrupting the presentation. So if there's something urgent that you have to deal with, please step out to the hotel lobby or at least outside the room. This is becoming a bigger and bigger problem with people. Also, as a courtesy to presenters and attendees, turn your cell phone on to vibrate or turn it off so that we don't have a whole session listening to different people's ringtones. And if you need to answer a cell phone call, please move out of the room and do it in a little more privacy and prevent interrupting. We're back where we started. So I hope you have an enjoyable and productive time here for the next 2.5 days. And if you have any concerns, speak to one of the directors for your concern, and we will try and resolve it. Unless anyone has any questions.
John, can we assign a timer? Someone to time the presentation and let the presenter know? Or
Okay. Is there someone who wants to volunteer to act as a timer to let people know when their time is up? Do we have a volunteer? All you have to do is sit with your watch and keep an eye on the time. We have no volunteers.
No,
Thank
no.
you.
I can do it.
Okay, thank
The
you.
watch I have, you know.
And Andy, since you're at the back corner, about as far away as people are going to get from the lectern, if you could sort of monitor the volume. So if you can't hear people who are presenting, speak up and ask them to speak up.
All right.
Also, the speakers and the microphone is also working in the podium.
Oh, there is a working microphone here, which should help. Yes?
So can we arrange to circulate a list of the attendees? There used to be something handed out, but I haven't seen it. Maybe it's coming with Lewis's document.
I can't quite
The
make
list of the attendees, informally it was passed out. Do we have that this year?
We have a list. We haven't discussed it as a board, the release of that list. If we do, we will release the list to the attendees on condition that the list goes no further and it's for their own use. In other words, you don't take that list of names and sell it to whatever company is offering you money for a mailing list. We will discuss that at our board meeting.
In the past, what we did was we let the attendees decide whether they wanted to be on the list or not.
Yeah.
Which is a way
Okay.
of using those folks as
If
deterrents.
Since the list of names is proprietary to the board, that's why I said the board would be making a decision. If you do not wish your name and email, all we'll release is name and email address. And if you do not wish it to be released, speak to Neil as secretary. He can keep tabs on that one and let us know. If you have no objection, then the board will make that decision. Any other questions? I have one comment that I'll make, that not dealing specifically with my presentation. I have in my hand what is referred to as a Logitech presenter. And basically, you plug a unit into the USB port on your computer, and it doesn't seem to matter what operating system you're using, it seems to work. And then you can use it to move the slideshow ahead or back, and also it has a laser pointer in it. So anyone who wishes to make use of it, I'll leave it up at the front here. If you're presenting, you may use it if you wish, as long as I get it back at the end. This one also has a timer on it. And if you set the timer, then I know why that blanked out. My tablet decided that it had run long enough, so it decided back it in. Anyways, it will be available. If you're, depending on how you're connecting your, the presenters, depending on how you're connecting your computer to the projector, I'll leave my HDMI cable here. It has a micro HDMI on one end and the standard HDMI on the other end. And I know some computers have that plug-in to connect to your interconnect to a display device. So I'll leave that.
We're providing a computer, so you can just bring
What's
the
that?
We're providing a computer and remote. So
Okay,
just
and
bring your.
there is a computer and a mouse available. So anyway, I'll turn this over to Neil, who will carry on with his session.